situation in Syria, both in open session, so you've heard my statement in the open session and also just now in closed session. Our message on the humanitarian side is very clear. As we come to the end of the year, the situation, the plight of the Syrian people is worse than it's ever been in the 5 years of this conflict. I mean, the whole world has seen how it has played out in Aleppo. What we now have to reflect on is what is the prospect for 2017 for the people who have been caught up in this conflict for now over 5 years. And there's a simple answer to that question. It will be more of the same, more death, more destruction, more needless humanitarian suffering until and unless there is a breakthrough on the political side. It's a well-worn soundbite that there's no humanitarian solution to this crisis, and that's why we appeal endlessly and relentlessly to our political masters to find the way to unify and find formula to bring this conflict away from the Syrian people into a political process. We know that if that does not occur, then what has been happening for the last 5 years will continue into 2017. And that is just not acceptable. We really do believe there is more humanity in the world than to leave the Syrian people languishing as they have been for these last years. So that's been our appeal as we end out 2016 and face into 2017. I also was pleased to hear recognition for the heroic work of humanitarian colleagues on the ground. The International Committee for the Red Cross, the Syrian Arab Red Crescent, international NGOs, and our United Nations colleagues. They are continuously on the front line, doing the best that they can. But we are, of course, falling way short in terms of our international responsibility to the people, even to meet the most basic humanitarian needs. Besiegement, denial of humanitarian access continues to be a tactic in this conflict. This is an abhorrence to all civilized people across the world. It's in flagrant violation of international legal responsibilities. And yet it prevails for, right now, 700,000 people who are caught up in the various locations that are besieged. These are just some of the examples that should motivate everybody to do much more and much more effectively. We have seen in the past week a unity in the Council, and I did say to the Council members that their unity does have positive effect on the ground in terms of saving lives and reducing humanitarian suffering. So they need to work on that unity so that we can bring an end to the conflict and give people a hope that 2017 will not be a continuation of what they have been living with. So with that said, I'm happy to take questions, and you've seen the briefing that we've gave in public.
What do you know about the situation of the people who fled or left Aleppo? Where do they live now? We're talking about tens of thousands. Do you know where they are, and do they live in camps? What did you prepare for them? And what's your message on their protection? Do they need protection, and what kind of protection that would be? Thank you.
In this last week, we've had about 20,000 people have been able to evacuate from eastern Aleppo. That's about 20,000 plus another 15 since November that have been able to go and elect where they wish to go. So if they wanted to go into non-government controlled areas in Idlib, then they were facilitated to go there. Most have gone in that direction. Others, a smaller number, have gone into western Aleppo. Initially, they were coming into holding points where distribution of immediate assistance could be provided. So we're talking about food, we're talking about medicine, and so forth. As you can imagine, particularly for the children, the women, they are very traumatized, but they're also severely affected by such a long period of conflict in terms of just their human condition. So we have mobilized a very large humanitarian effort for these people as they have been exiting, and also in the area now that they are now present in. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. You mentioned in your briefing what you called the tit-for-tat evacuation of Medea and Zabadani, and you talked about the burning of the buses to Fua. What's the status of, if you can just say a little more detail, the status of that? Also, how many buses were burned? Who was supposed to be protecting the buses? We heard here at the stakeout there were 25. I've read that there were 5. We heard that 3 drivers were killed. We didn't hear anything from the Secretariat. What's your understanding of that? And I have an OCHA question at the end if you're willing to answer it.
Yeah. On the tension that is around these evacuations, I mean, you can just imagine that people who have been locked in mortal combat are then finding themselves in a situation where they have to facilitate the exit of those that they have been fighting for such a long period. So tensions run incredibly high, and any small incident then escalates very, very quickly. We didn't, as the United Nations, we didn't have presence in the places where the buses were burned, and that's why we haven't actually put the United Nations name to a number. But you have what you have from other sources. I'm not going to add to that.
I mean, I saw Jan Egeland said that a driver was killed. Not to be too.
Yeah. That's that. Yes, I mean, Jan Egeland speaks for us. Yeah.
The other one is not serious. OCHA.
Okay.
Part of the agreement for the evacuation was to release the prisoners. Today we learned that 100 of Syrian soldiers were found killed during the evacuation. Also, they have bombed and booby-trapped many places in eastern Aleppo. Have you had any access to that? Can you verify this? Would you confirm the death of 100 of the prisoners?
No, I cannot confirm, because again, we haven't been physically present to be able to see that firsthand as the United Nations. We are gaining access to the areas of Aleppo that we didn't previously have access to day by day, but we have not yet been able to gain access, and I made that clear in my statement. The Syrian government have not consented to our entry into that last enclave that has been the subject of all of these evacuations in these recent days. So we don't, until we get that access, we won't be able to give you first-hand information on what is happening. But as I said in the statement, we are receiving all of these very distressing and alarming reports about human rights violations, and that is, of course, giving even more urgency around the UN getting into these places so that we can do what the Security Council resolution says that we should be doing. I mean, we have over 100 United Nations staff on the ground in Aleppo to do what we need to do and be present where we need to be present.
How safe do you feel that you can send your men into that area, given that 3 of the security people from Syria today perished while they were trying to enter a place because it was booby-trapped?
No, it's very dangerous in this conflict zone. It's very dangerous, and as you know, many humanitarians have lost their lives over the years of this conflict because they are putting themselves into danger in the interest of saving lives and reducing humanitarian suffering. That's what we do as humanitarians. Of course, we have to take all responsible measures to mitigate the risks that our humanitarian colleagues will be exposed to, while at the same time having a preoccupation that our number one priority is to get access to people who otherwise will die or needlessly suffer if we don't help them. That's the equation that we have to balance at all times. And as I said, our colleagues in Syria on the humanitarian side, whether it's the ICRC, SARC, international NGOs or UN, they are incredibly brave people, and I was pleased to hear Council members acknowledging their heroism in the face of such dangers and difficulties that you refer to. Thank you.
Approximately how many civilians have decided to stay behind in East Aleppo, and could you give any count regarding those who've been designated or self-identified as fighters as to whether they are all out of East Aleppo? And is the area that you're talking about, this, you said narrow strip that you haven't been allowed to enter, just to clarify, is that still under, is that now under government control? And what's being done to try to overcome those obstacles?
Yeah. The last area that was the subject of the evacuation, which is a small part of what was previously under the opposition control in Aleppo, and that has been the place from which these evacuees have been coming. This is the area that we as the United Nations have not yet been able to gain access to. So therefore, I'm not able to say how many people are still in there. This is obviously a source of concern for us. This is also why the Security Council mandated us to go and monitor in all of these areas to make sure that those who wish to evacuate are allowed to evacuate, and also those who are in need of humanitarian assistance, be it medical or other assistance, will get it. We are obviously pressing very hard with the Syrian government to get access ASAP, immediately. We've been pushing all the time. As I said, we have brave colleagues who are willing to run the risks that are involved in going into a very dangerous area, but as yet we have not succeeded to get that consent from them. And therefore, our first-hand knowledge of how many people and so forth, we don't have figures that the United Nations can stand over or communicate. In terms of the composition of fighters versus civilians and so forth, again, not being present in the rebel-controlled areas of eastern Aleppo, we cannot say as a UN first-hand who, if any, were denied access. But we do know from our partners, the ICRC and the Red Cross, that fighters were among those who were evacuated with their families.
Initially, we were told that over about 300,000 civilians are trapped in eastern Aleppo.
Yeah.
Then the figures went down to less than 100,000, I believe. Yeah. Why is this discrepancy?
Because what you have been seeing over the course of this last period is a movement in the lines of control. So originally there was a much bigger area under the control of the opposition, and as the forces advanced against them, the area was made smaller and smaller. Now, not everybody moved out of their locality into what was remaining under opposition control. Many people, when areas fell, they stayed where they were. Others, as you know, over the last weeks have been evacuating, self-evacuating themselves out of the area when it was under military assault. So the numbers have been changing as the territory under opposition control has been shrinking.
Is it correct to say that people feel more safe where the army is than where the rebels are, or the terrorists or the armed groups? Also about Kafraya and Fo'a, there were estimates that 5,000 should be evacuated. Those who were evacuated were much less. Are there any future evacuations? Would you ask for investigation regarding who incinerated these buses and who killed the 3 drivers, similar to the Urum al-Kubra, like what happened?
Yeah. So the question on where people feel safest, that's a question you should ask the people themselves. But I can tell you that from my perspective, people feel safe when they're not under fire. So wherever they're not under fire or under threat, they will feel safe. In terms of the evacuations from the two towns, the number was 1,200, and what we are now expecting is that there will be a continuation linked to Zabadani and Medea, and that operation will be conducted now in the coming period. That's what we're expecting. And as far as accountability is concerned, of course, there should be accountability. I mean, as humanitarians, the first thing that we are preoccupied with is the protection of the population, delivering them life-saving assistance, and then the other parts of the United Nations deal with the accountability issues.
And thanks a lot. This is it may be related to Syria and something larger, but there seems to be a downsizing situation taking place in OCHA. I know that the union has asked to have a staff management working group. Many people are concerned their contracts expire, that they're out. One, how is it consistent with the needs that you're describing? But two, what's the problem with OCHA actually engaging in an organized fashion with its workforce as it's downsizing them?
So the budget reduction on the OCHA side is a reflection of the shortfall in financing for humanitarian action. It's as simple as that. As you know, I've conducted so many briefings where we talk about the gap between what is available in financing for humanitarian action and what the very basic life-saving needs are costing. And the gap is running at about 50%. Needless to say, we on the OCHA side are caught up in that same financing dynamic. We are, as an organisation, receiving the same amount of money in 2016 that we received in 2012. So there aren't too many things on this planet that you can buy at 2012 prices. But our financial donors seem to think that they can get OCHA 2016 for 2012. And the reality is that the world has changed significantly in terms of humanitarian action and humanitarian needs, and we have not been able to keep pace with that because we're not getting the financial resources that we require. This has now resulted in a budget crunch for us in terms of having to rationalize and streamline and prioritize, but we're prioritizing on top of priorities because all we do in our side of international action is we work on the life-saving and the very basics that people are entitled to and required to have. But that is where we are. In terms of dealing with the issues involved in this, our Under Secretary General has been personally leading this issue in the first instance, trying to raise more money. That's been his first preoccupation, and secondly, in dialogue directly with staff, including his own personally holding town hall meetings, a number of them, and so forth. I've seen the letter yesterday from the staff union that you referred to, and that will be addressed, of course, by management as well. I mean, at the end of the day, any organisation in the United Nations is as good as its staff, and we have to meet the expectations of our staff as managers, particularly at a time of change and insecurity when it comes to their contracts. So again, we know what our responsibility is in this regard. Thank you. Yeah.
In Khan al-Sheikh, the area which is close to Damascus, there was reconciliation between the fighters and the government forces. Have you seen any retributions there, or did you visit the area after the reconciliation?
Personally, I haven't been given a visa by the Syrian government for well over 2 years to visit these areas, which I would very much hope that they would relent on blocking people like myself from going to see exactly firsthand what is happening on the ground. So therefore, I can't answer your question because I have not seen it myself firsthand. Thank you.
Stick on her, sir.